Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's do the prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhur Tat Savitra Varenayam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat, Asto Ma Sadgamya, Tamso Ma Jyotirgamya, Mrityurma Amritam Gamya. ओम सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सवीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ओम शांति 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 ओम. So for the last few months we have been learning from this Uddhava Gita, where Lord Krishna is talking to his cousin, his friend, his devotee Uddhava. And we are on the last chapter now. So chapter 23, the title of this chapter is Bhakti Yoga. So let's look at the summary which is given in this book. Uddhav thought that the process of Gyan Yoga that the Lord had described was too difficult. You remember the last chapter was the Gyan Yoga. And so he asked about an easier means of self-realization. In reply, the Lord briefly described the process of devotional service. Karmis and yogis who are still under the influence of the illusory energy of the Lord and thus are very proud of their meager accomplishments are not inclined to take shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord. So karmis means a person says, I'm doing a lot of selfless service, lot of seva, little ego comes. Gyanis also. I know so much. So that's why bhakti is the one which really makes us humble. Okay, bhakti is very important. Even in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna talked about that. My bhagat can come to me. Okay, so gyan is important, karam is important too, but bhakti is one which makes us humbler. On the other hand, the swan-like men who can discriminate between matter and spirit take shelter of the Lord without reservation. The Supreme Lord resides within the hearts of all living entities as the overseer and permitter, and sometimes appears externally as the spiritual master who teaches by example. He dispels the living entities' misfortune by revealing his eternal form. One should perform all activities in the service of the Supreme Lord, keeping one's mind fixed upon him in all circumstances. So this is the key thing, that we got to have our mind connected to the Lord. Mind connected. One should reside in the holy places of pilgrimage that are related to the Supreme Lord, where many pure devotees of the Lord reside. And one should take part in the festivals that celebrate the Lord's appearance, and so on. One should at least theoretically understand that all living entities are places of the Lord's residence as the super soul, and thus cultivate equal vision so that material prejudices will be vanquished. One should avoid intimate association with the non-devotees. Okay, because this association with the people does have the effect on us. So non-devotees means some people don't believe in God. And sooner or later, we'll have the same kind of a thinking too. So that's why he's warning us that one should avoid intimate association with non-devotees and renounce desires for material enjoyment. In this frame of mind, one should offer obeisance to all, even the lowest of men and animals. As long as one cannot factually perceive the Supreme Lord present within all beings, one should continue to use his body, mind, and speech in the service of the Lord. These are the instruments given to us, our body, mind, speech. Use it for Ishwar Seva. Because devotional service to the Supreme Lord is the eternal function of the spirit soul and is preached by Lord Himself, it is always auspicious and successful. When one surrenders to the Lord without duplicity, the Lord becomes satisfied. So, duplicity means no pretense. We should not pretend to be devotees, we should be real devotee. As a result, when one surrenders to the Lord without duplicity, the Lord becomes satisfied. As a result, the devotee attains eternal residence with the Lord in the spiritual sky and enjoys opulence on the level of that of the Lord. After contemplating the Lord's instructions, Uddhav went to Badrika ashram. You remember that was in the beginning, they told us that when Lord Krishna wanted to leave his body, he just gave all these instructions to Uddhav and he told him to go to Badrika ashram as ordered by the Lord. By perfectly carrying out the orders of the Lord, he ultimately attained the transcendental abode of the Lord. Indeed, anyone who faithfully assimilates and then practices these instructions of the Lord will be freed from material existence. Let's look at this chapter also, verse by verse, what kind of a message we are getting. But first, Uddhav is asking a question. Uddhav says, Sudustaram imam manye yog charyam anatmana yathansah puman siddhyet tanme bruhu anj sayachut. Uddhav said, O infallible Lord, I think that it is very difficult for ordinary persons who are not self-controlled to practice the yoga system described by you. So he's mentioning the Gyan Yoga, which Lord Krishna mentioned in the previous chapter. Therefore, please tell me more simply how one can easily attain perfection. So tell me the easy way for human beings to follow. Taking shelter of exalted devotees and holy places that are associated with the Lord enhances one's devotional service. This will be described in this chapter. Uddhav had difficulty imagining how anyone could follow the procedures of yoga that the Supreme Lord had imparted to him. This is being explained in this verse. The process of yoga, which teaches one to completely give up all attachment for the material body, was described in the previous chapter. So it's like a complete renunciation most of us can do. But Uddhav thinks that this practice is too difficult for the majority of people. He therefore requests the Lord to describe a process whereby human beings can easily attain success. Although the word anjasa has been spoken twice in this verse, the fault of redundancy does not arise because each indicates a separate cause. Let's look at verse number 2. Prayashaha undrikakshaha yunjayantaho yogino mana vishidante asamadhanam manonigraha karshita. O lotus-eyed Lord, so Uddhav is still speaking, yogis who try to steady the mind generally experience frustration because of their inability to do so. And we see that when we try to meditate, control the mind, it wants to run here and there even faster. As a result, they become wary of their attempt to bring the mind under control. The practice of yoga, as described in previous chapter, is extremely difficult to perform. How this is so is being explained in this verse. In the course of trying to concentrate their minds on Brahma, those who practice yoga often become frustrated, being unable to do so. Then further he says, Athat anand dugham pad ambujam hansaha shreyen arvind lochan sukham no vishveshwar yog karam bhi swatvan mayayim vihitanam manina. Therefore, O lotus-eyed Lord of the universe, Swan-like men joyfully take shelter of your lotus feet, the source of all transcendental ecstasy. However, those who do not surrender to you, being proud of their practice of yoga and karma, are defeated by your illusory energy. So yoga over here means Gyan Yoga. So Gyan Yoga and Karma Yoga, they feel defeated. Illusory energy is what? The Maya. Uddhav desires that the Lord explain the essence of yoga, which is understood by men who are like swans, who can extract the milk from a mixture of milk and water. Those who are very proud of their positions of karmis, jnanis, and yogis are actually bewildered by the illusory energy of the Lord and therefore undergo great difficulty. The processes of yoga leading to spiritual perfection that are accepted by the non-devotees do not provide the satisfaction experienced by those who rendered service unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Actual happiness is relished in the service of the all-blissful Supreme Lord, and distress results from posing as an enjoyer in the bodily concept of life. So further, Uddhav says in verse number 4, Kim chitram achyut tvetat ashesh bandho dashesh bandho dashesh anye sharneshu yad atma satvam यो रोचयत सह मृगे स्वयं ईश्वरी नाम श्रीमत किरीट तट पीड़ित पाद पीड़ा. My dear infallible Lord, it is not at all astonishing that you intimately relate with your devotees who have taken shelter of you, such as Nand Maharaj, the Gopis, and the Bali Maharaj. After all, during your appearance as Lord Ramchandra, when even great personalities such as Brahma desired to place the tips of their crowns at your lotus feet, you nevertheless showed more affection for monkeys, such as Hanuman, because they had taken exclusive shelter of you. It is not surprising that those who serve the Supreme Lord receive his favor. The word Ananyashram indicates that the Supreme Lord fully protects his servants who are completely free from the contamination of karma and jnana, and even take a position of subordination to them. This is not at all astonishing. Although the king is the ruler of the society, he is directed by the Brahmins. In the same way, the Supreme Lord is controlled by his dear servants. In other words, the Lord allows himself to come under the control of his devotees. See, that's why we say Bhagwan Bhagat ke vash mein ho jate hain. So it's like a love in the heart of the Bhagat. That's how he gets attracted. The Supreme Personality of Godhead as Lord Ramchandra established friendship with monkeys, and as Krishna, he enjoyed tending the cows in the pasturing grounds of Vrindavan and would steal butter and distribute it to the monkeys. Such devotees of the Lord have no need for the elaborate Gyan Yoga system or the process for achieving mystic powers. All these devotees are represented here by Shri Uddhava. So Uddhava is mentioning all these names over here, who frankly informs the Lord that the sophisticated system of philosophical speculation and mystic yoga are not appealing for one who has developed a taste for direct loving service to the Lord. Unalloyed devotees in all species of life became successful in establishing a relationship of friendship with the Lord, although even great personalities such as Brahma could not do so. And we see that in the Krishna Leela, how Brahma got deluded. He could not imagine that a little boy can be Lord himself. So this is what he's mentioning over here. Verse number 5. Tamaha tva akhilatma dhyate shram आश्रिता नाम सर्वर्थ दम स्वकृत विद्विसृजेत कोनो को वा भजेत किम अपि विस्मृते नो भूते किम वा भवेन न तव पाद रजो जुषाम न. Who could even think of rejoicing you, the Supreme Soul, the most dear object of worship, and the Supreme Lord of all, who awards all possible perfections to the devotees who take shelter of you? Who could be so ungrateful, knowing the great mercy you bestow? Who would reject you and accept something for the sake of material enjoyment, which simply leads to a miserable condition of life? What is there lacking for us who are engaged in the service of the dust of your lotus feet? The Lord is the well-wishing friend of all living entities and for their benefit. He imparts instructions on devotional service to his empowered representatives, such as Narad Muni. And we see that in all the scriptures, Narad Muni is the one which is helping the devotees to the walk on the path of devotion. Narad Muni. The Lord is the bestower of the fruits of everyone's activities because he is the supreme controller. But he particularly fulfills all the desires of his devotees. The Lord showered great compassion upon devotees such as Bali and Prahlad. We all grew up with these stories. Knowing this, who would want to abandon him? Only the most fallen, dry, and ungrateful yogis reject the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. How can an unalloyed devotee of the Lord desire elevation to the heavenly planets or liberation? How is it that devotees such as Bali and Prahlad, who were free from material desires, attained such a status of material enjoyment and even liberation? The answer to this dilemma is found in the Narayaniya of Moksha Dharma section of the Mahabharata. What does it say over there in Mahabharata? Whatever among the four goals of human life can be achieved by various spiritual practices is automatically achieved without such endeavors by the person who has taken shelter of Lord Narayan, the refuge of all persons. So this is the benefit of surrender. Material enjoyment and liberation are simply byproducts of the Lord's inconceivable mercy. What else he says? Navopyantihe upchitim kavyas tavesh brahmayuishapi kritam rida bhuda samrantam yo antra bahistanu pritam ashubham vidunvan acharya chaitya vashishaswam gatim vyaniktaha. My dear Lord, those who are learned scholars in the transcendental science could never properly express their indebtedness to you, even with a lifetime of Brahma, because you manifest yourself externally as the Acharya and internally as the Super Soul, to deliver the conditioned souls by instructing them how to return to you. As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. This reward of the Lord is not artificial, it is natural. It is ultimately the Lord who is the bestower of the results of the everyone's activities, even by rendering devotional service for a duration of 1,000 kalps. A devotee cannot repay the debt he feels to the Lord for having awarded him loving service to his lotus feet. So we can never pay this debt, what God has done for us. The word apichiti indicates that a devotee could not repay his debt to the Lord even by rendering service to him for the duration of Brahma's life. The Lord guides the living entities from without as the mantra guru and the shiksha guru, and by imparting instructions of devotional service and from within. He guides the living entities as the super soul. The Lord has personally stated this in Bhagavad Gita. He says, to those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Expert and sober devotees, despite being very qualified and having a lifespan like that of Brahma, cannot repay the Lord's favor upon them by awarding them auspiciousness while remaining seated within their hearts as the super soul. See, that's why these debts we often talk about as human beings. We have three debts. Okay. Pitri rin, rin means a debt. So Pitri rin, parental debt. Dev rin, that is a debt to these devatas, these elemental forces. And then debt to the rishis, rishi rin. Okay, these three debts we need to pay. But debt towards the Guru, debt towards God, we cannot pay. So that's why it's not mentioned. Something which we cannot pay back. So there's no Guru rin or Ishwar rin. This is what Uddhava Ji is talking about over here. That no matter how long we live, we can have a life even longer than the Brahma. We cannot pay back. Okay? So that's why the only thing we need to do is just follow the teachings and surrender the ego. Surrender the ego. Now, the next verse, verse number 7, is Shukdev Ji is talking. Okay? See, you remember that this Uddhava Gita is part of Bhagavad Puran. And Bhagavad Puran is essentially Shukdev Ji, who is a son of Rishi Vyas. He is speaking all this to Arjun's grandson, who is going to die in 7 days. So all this knowledge is being imparted. And over there, it was not only the Arjun's grandson Parikshit, but there were a lot of other rishis, munis, they came over there too. See, whenever the discourse like this happens, the people who are interested, they gather there. See, whatever is our interest, we'll go there. So this was the satsang which was going on. And it was only between Shukdev Ji and Parikshit, but a lot of other rishi munis, they came from all over the universe to listen to this. So Shukdev is saying in verse number 7, the reason I'm just going back to this because we should not forget the complete picture. There are so many names which come in there. So Shukdev Ji said, Iti युद्धवेनात्य अनुरक्त चेत सहा पृष्ठो जगत क्रीड़न कहा स्व शक्ति भी गृहीत मूर्ति त्रयम ईश्वरे ईश्वर हो जगाद स प्रेम मनोहर स्मिता. Shukdev Goswami said, being thus questioned by the most affectionate Uddhava, Lord Krishna, the master of the demigods, who considers the entire universe as his plaything, plaything means a leela, and assumes the three forms of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, began to reply while lovingly displaying his all-attractive smile. We all know that how Lord Krishna keeps on smiling. Throughout his lifetime on this earth, he kept smiling. Okay? See, that's why even in the middle of that great war, he was smiling. Arjuna was speaking, he was smiling. Okay. This material world is also a place for the Lord's eternal pastimes. He enjoys in this world with his internal, marginal, and external energies as the super soul within the hearts of all living entities. He inspired Uddhav from within to place before him these inquiries for the benefit of future devotees. Sometimes the questions are asked by the great people for our benefit. Otherwise, we would never know. Even Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita kept asking those questions. If he wouldn't have asked those questions, we wouldn't have known the answers. So they do a favor to people like us who have just started walking on this path. So he inspired Uddhav from within to place before him these inquiries for the benefit of future devotees. The Lord exhibits his pastimes within this material world just to distribute the transcendental mellows of devotional service. Here, Uddhav is the audience and Lord Krishna is the speaker. Similarly, Sukhdev Goswami became the speaker and Maharaj Parikshit became the listener. These conversations shower the nectar for which all living entities are hankering. Shri Krishna alone is capable of bestowing actual mercy, which only brings unmixed auspiciousness. He is the controller of all the universal controllers. He spoke to Uddhav while displaying his most enchanting smile. And what did he say? So, verse number 8, now Lord Krishna is answering Uddhav's questions here. Verse number 8. Hantaha te kathishyamimam dharman sumanglan yan shraddhaya charam mrityum jayat durjayam. The Supreme Personality of God had said, yes, I shall describe to you the religious principles of devotion to me, by executing which a mortal human being can conquer unconquerable death. Out of compassion, Lord Krishna will explain the principles of devotional service unto him. These principles are very auspicious and should be followed by all human beings with great faith. It is only in this way that the conditioned souls can conquer unconquerable death. Okay? So it's for all. It's not just for a certain sect. It's for all the human beings. Okay? Verse number 9. Kuryat sarvani karmani mad artham shankai smaran mai arpit manaschito mad dharmatma manorati. This is what we need to do. While always remembering me, one should perform his devotional and daily duties for my satisfaction, without becoming impetuous. With mind and intelligence offered to me, one should cultivate attraction for my devotional service. The same thing he told Arjuna also, when he told him to wage the war. Do your duty while keeping your mind fixed on me. That's what we need to do. Do our daily duties while keeping our mind attached to God. Most of the time, our mind is attached to the fruits. Our mind is attached to what others will say or think. We got to remove our mind from those places and just fix it at the feet of Lord. But keep doing the duties. We should not let go of our duties, but let go of the attachment to the fruits. The Lord will herein describes devotional service that is unmixed with karma and gyan. One should keep his body clean by brushing his teeth and bathing. One should keep his existence in a purified state by hearing and chanting the glories of the Supreme Lord. Ordinary human beings should follow the principles of varnashram. Okay, so we got to do things, duties according to our stage in life. And while performing all activities, they should remember the Supreme Lord, one whose heart is always fixed in meditation upon the Lord, and his characteristics is a first-class devotee. So that's a Uttama Bhagat. Okay, it's not a Bhagat who just does not do his duty. doing the duties according to our stage of life, status of life, but keeping the mind attached to God. Then he says in verse number 10, Deshan punyan ashrayet mad bhagate sadhu bhishritan deva sur manusheshu mad bhakta charitani cha. One should reside in a holy place that is inhabited by my saintly devotees, and one should follow in their footsteps. Such devotees appear among the demigods, demons, and human beings. What is unalloyed devotional service? What is Vaidhi Bhakti and Raga Anurag Bhakti? These are being explained one after another. One should live in a holy place, such as Dwarka. But we cannot go there, all of us cannot go there. We can always make our own as Dwarka. Wherever we are living, if we consider that our home as a temple. See, first of all, this body is a temple. Then our home should be like a temple too. First of all, prohibited things should not enter this body. Only then it's a temple. Then prohibited things should not enter into our home either. Then that becomes a temple. One should follow the instructions and exemplary behavior of exalted personalities like Narad Muni, Prahlad Maharaj, and King Ambrish. This is called Vaidhi Bhakti. Learn from those great devotees. What did they do? How did they attain that level? Or a regulative devotional service to reside in a holy place like Gokul, Govardhan, or Vrindavan and follow in the footsteps of the gopis like Chandrakanti and Vrinda is called Rag Anurag Bhakti or devotional service and attachment. Okay, so sure, going to those places that helps, but at home also, especially these days, we have all kinds of instruments. We can listen to these great devotees, what they are saying, what are they telling us, and do the sadhana, stay connected. Wherever we are, it's not a physically, sometimes physically we can be there, but we are not mentally connected. That's no use. So being where you are and mentally connected, remembering, studying, reading, doing the sadhana. Verse number 11. Prithak स्वत्रेन व मह्यम पर्व यात्रा महोत्सवान कार्येद गीता नृत्य धैर्य महाराज विभूति भी. Whether alone or in the assembly of devotees, one should sing, dance, and spend lavishly to celebrate my appearance days, as well as other ceremonies and festivals that are especially meant for my worship. Those basic principles apply to all types of devotional processes. So that means that whatever way we can connect with God, some people can sit and meditate, connect with God. Some people like to sing bhajans or even dance, connect with God. So whichever way, the ultimate goal is to connect God through these means. That's what he's trying to tell us. Let's do one more verse and we'll stop. Verse number 12. Mam ev sarvabhuteshu bahir antra pavritam ikshet atmani cha atmanan yathakam amalashya. With a purified heart, one should see me as being situated within his own self. That is the key thing. If you are doing all kinds of devotional practices, going to holy places, but we don't see God seated in here, that means we are missing the point. With a purified heart, one should see me as being situated within his own self. as well as within the hearts of all living entities. If you think that no, God is living with me, not in anybody else, because I have done the tapasya, again we are missing the point. To see God residing everywhere, that's called self-realization, God realization. But it starts from here first. So with a purified heart, first the heart has to be purified. In order the heart to be purified, the mind has to be purified too. Normally, mind has so many desires. Mind has anger. Mind has greed. Mind has ego. So that's why we are supposed to do the sadhana, so that we can purify our mind. So with a pure mind, pure heart, only then we will see God seated right here. Otherwise we won't. As well as within the hearts of all living entities. Unblemished and all-pervading like the sky. Okay, God is everywhere. There's no place where God is not. Ever since we were little, we heard these phrases, Kan kan mein Bhagwan. There's no place where God is not. Even when we say Om Bhur Bhuva Swah, we are saying, God, you are everywhere. There's no place you are not. Not just only in my house or in the temples or outside the temple or in the sky, even beyond the sky. You are everywhere. We will realize it only if our heart and mind are pure. So that's why this is where we need to work. It doesn't happen automatically. After describing the duties of unalloyed devotees, Lord Krishna now speaks in a way so as to attract the jnanis. Because Gyan takes us, this is the Gyan. Without Gyan, Bhakti of this level is not possible actually. But without Bhakti, this kind of a Gyan doesn't make sense either. Then we have instruments, so we need to do seva also, karam also. See, just like if you are making a rope with 3 strings, all 3 strings are important. The full strength will come if you just bring all the 3 ropes back and forth. The same thing happens with the Gyan, Karam and Bhakti. Because if we think that we are a devotees, we are Bhagat, 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 we can become very proud too. The others are not Bhagat, but I am. That's called a pseudo Bhakti. So without Gyan, this level of Bhakti cannot be reached. And without Karam also. We have been given these instruments and we have certain duties in life. We need to do those too. So that's why after describing the duties of unalloyed devotees, Lord Krishna now speaks in a way so as to attract the jnanis. Those who are philosophically searching for the absolute truth should understand how the Lord is transcendently situated without any tinge of matter, although he is all pervading and situated within the hearts of all living entities. The same message he gave in Bhagavad Gita through Arjuna also to us when he was talking to Arjuna. Over here, he's talking to Uddhava. See, that's why the Rishi Rin, to pay back the Rishi Rin, is so important to study these scriptures, to understand the message which Lord is giving it to us. Okay, let's stop it here and we'll start with verse number 13 next week. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaye Purnameva Visheshyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.